We've got two
Good.
coded options here. So we've got JavaScript for your website as well as sending custom events via API. So I know Kevin has pretty deep experience with sending via API. So why don't we jump to that one and then we can go back to JavaScript.
That sounds great.
I can talk a little bit, Maggie, or do you want to explain what it is and I can go into my use case?
Yeah, I can give like maybe an opener. So we have actually two endpoints that make sending data via API easy for custom events. So the first one is relatively new. If you haven't looked at the custom events functionality in a while, you might not have seen it. Something that was true for a really long time with the custom events feature is that in order to use this API function, you had to or use the API endpoint, you had to log into HubSpot and create your event first in the custom events app before you could send data to it. We've now created an endpoint that allows you to do all of it via API. So there's two endpoints that kind of serve as step one, step two. Step one is the create event definitions endpoint that lets you create your event essentially template and all of the properties that are within it. Why do we make you do that at all is probably a good question. It's really kind of about data management best practices, right? We want to make sure that you are, since these events are going to show up in essentially all of HubSpot, we want to make sure that you are essentially properly configuring the properties that you want to capture about that event and that you're naming them and sort of organizing them in a way that makes them the most usable for you. It also allows you to edit the schema or the collection of properties of a given event a little bit easier when it's sort of its own concept, right? So that's step one, is to create the event definition, is what we call it, using the first endpoint. And then the second endpoint is to send completion data. So Kevin clicked this button 100 times. You're going to send 100 completions to the completions endpoint. But I'll let Kevin speak to his experience setting up custom events.
Yeah, what I've done at Curbio here is we have a mobile application for iOS and Android, and we've been using the API to feed mobile app events into HubSpot. Mostly not all events. That's kind of the key here that Maggie talked about is like you have to create the events first, and it's important to think through what events, as a marketer or salesperson or rev ops that you actually need to take action on, and just create, you don't want to overwhelm yourself with data, but just create what you need. And then, I mean, for me, it's essentially ask your devs to help you. But it's really not tremendously difficult. And I know there's tools like Amplitude, Segment. Maggie probably knows the whole list of everything that can actually pass those events into custom events. So whether you're pulling it out of Firebase into Amplitude or however you're doing it, your devs should be able to basically look at the documentation and then either set up the events themselves or start passing data to them as well. And like Maggie said, what's really important as well is to figure out what metadata you want on your event so that you can take more specific action off of it. Like it's, helpful to know, okay, somebody logged in and when, but like you may, and I think, for example, device might be included in that. But if it's not, you may want a custom attribute on the event so you know what kind of device they're using. And so you can then tailor your follow-up and all of your experience after that.
Yeah, for sure. The more custom property data that you capture, the richer segmentation you sort of unlock for yourself downstream. There's 32 default properties that come out of the box with these events that are sort of geared towards digital engagement a little bit. So things like device type are something that is created by default that you can fill when you send data via API. But really, you can get super creative. If you have designations in your app about the kinds of users that are using it, you can create those as custom properties and then have that available in segmentation for your events.